Imagine being confronted with a truth that changes everything you believed about yourself. Lauren, a humble and hardworking young woman, lives her routine as a waitress in a luxurious New York cafe, unaware that her life is about to take an unexpected turn. A necklace, the only keepsake from her biological mother, will be the key to unraveling a long-buried secret. If you love heartwarming stories, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. Enjoy. On that Friday afternoon, the air in the Crown Cafe was thick with an invisible tension. The elegant setting, with its marble walls and refined decor, contrasted sharply with the unease Lauren Garcia felt as she moved between tables with trays full of orders. Her boss, Claire Johnson, had spent the entire shift shooting critical glances and whispering prejudiced comments, something that had become an agonizing routine since Lauren's first day at work. At that moment, Joseph Carrington, a powerful figure in the food industry, sat with 3 other executives at a reserved table in the corner. The conversations around him revolved around mergers, expansions, and multi-million-dollar contracts. For Joseph, this was just another business meeting, a common part of his successful routine. He had already earned the respect of his peers, his wealth was immense, and his influence undeniable. While his partners spoke, Joseph maintained his usual commanding posture, but something across the room caught his attention. On the other side of the cafe, Lauren bent down to serve a table, and at that moment, her necklace slipped out from under her collar and swayed in the air. The heart-shaped pendant reflected the soft light of the room, casting a subtle glimmer, just enough to catch Joseph's eye in an unexpected way. For a moment, he stopped listening to the voices around him, his gaze fixed on the necklace. It couldn't be real. The necklace was identical to the one Carmen, his housemaid from many years ago, used to wear. The same woman with whom he'd had an affair, and who had mysteriously vanished from his life. Memories began to flood in, and a chill ran down his spine. What was that necklace doing around a waitress's neck? Who was this young woman? And why did she seem familiar in a way he couldn't explain? Joseph tried to mask his discomfort, turning back to his colleagues, but his mind was already far away, completely unsettled by the necklace and the girl. That night, while his fellow executives celebrated the closing of yet another contract, Joseph could barely focus. The images of Carmen and that pendant wouldn't leave his mind. He had to go back. He had to know more. Lauren Garcia, at 21, was a young woman of humble origins and strong determination. Raised by her uncles, Samuel and Mary Garcia, she had learned early on the meaning of sacrifice and resilience. Her uncles, poor and with few resources, had fought bravely to raise her after the tragic death of her biological mother Carmen when Lauren was only 4. The small house they lived in was cramped and simple, with a leaky roof and furniture that had been repaired countless times to last another season. Although they didn't have much, Samuel and Mary gave her what they could: love and protection. However, poverty was a constant reminder of the hard life they led. Samuel worked as a construction worker, and Mary took on odd jobs as a seamstress, accepting any work to put food on the table. From a young age, Lauren had watched them fight for every penny, and this shaped her strong character and determination to work hard to change her own story. The heart-shaped necklace, which Lauren never took off, was the only reminder of her biological mother. She clung to that piece of jewelry as a symbol of the love she never knew but deeply felt. Inside the pendant was an old, faded photo of her mother, Carmen. Although Lauren had few memories of her, the necklace gave her a sense of connection to a past that always felt distant and mysterious. Working at the Crown wasn't easy. Lauren knew she didn't belong there. The upscale cafe was a meeting spot for New York's elite, and the customers, along with her boss Claire, treated her with disdain and condescension. From day one, Claire made sure to remind her of her subordinate position. Something about Lauren being Latina seemed to irritate the manager deeply. Every small mistake was treated as a colossal failure, and every victory was ignored. Once, when Lauren asked for time off to visit her sick uncle, Claire made a cutting remark. "Latinos are all the same. Can't handle even a month of work without making up excuses to skip. Be grateful I even considered giving you this job." Those words echoed in Lauren's mind for days, leaving a scar that hurt deeply, but that she would never show. The day after the meeting, Joseph Carrington returned to the cafe, this time alone. There were no more executives with him, no muffled laughter over contracts. He wanted to observe Lauren more closely, to try to understand who she was. He was obsessed with the idea that there might be a connection between this young woman and Carmen. When Lauren served him again, this time she noticed his intense gaze. The uncomfortable feeling she had the day before intensified, and she didn't know why. This man couldn't seem to take his eyes off her, and Lauren felt like she was being studied, analyzed, but not in the superficial way other customers looked at her. There was something more, something that stirred her instincts and made her uneasy. Joseph watched every move Lauren made, from the way she leaned over to serve customers, to the way she nervously adjusted the necklace around her neck. He needed to know more. The doubt was eating away at him. Could it be that he had a daughter he never knew about? When Lauren walked away from the table, he found himself unable to start the conversation he had planned. He was destabilized, confused, and something inside him screamed for answers. That very night, he did something he never thought he would do again. He hired a private investigator. He needed to find out who Lauren Garcia was, where she came from, and most importantly, how that necklace had ended up with her. Joseph knew the secret of his past was about to be revealed, and it scared him. While the detective investigated Lauren's life, he began to uncover details that put Joseph in a state of constant anxiety. Lauren had been raised by her uncles, simple and humble people, who had done their best to provide her with a decent life, despite their extreme poverty. Carmen, Lauren's biological mother, had tragically died when she was very young, leaving the child in the care of Samuel and Mary. With each new discovery, Joseph became more disturbed. The detective brought more information about Lauren's difficult childhood, about how she had grown up in a poor neighborhood, struggling for opportunities that never seemed to materialize. Lauren's uncles loved her deeply, but could offer little more than a roof and the basics for survival. Joseph began to feel an overwhelming guilt. If Lauren was his daughter, he had a responsibility. He had failed her, failed Carmen, and failed the uncles who, in some way, had taken on the burden he had never known to carry. Finally, the detective found the final clue that confirmed all the suspicions. Carmen had indeed been Lauren's mother. A DNA test was requested, and Joseph, nervous, awaited the result with a heavy heart. When the test finally confirmed that Lauren was his daughter, Joseph was overcome with a mixture of relief and despair. When Joseph Carrington received the final report from the investigator, he could barely maintain his usual posture of coldness and control. The words "positive DNA test" echoed in his mind like hammer blows, breaking down the wall he had built around his past, piece by piece. Lauren was his daughter. Carmen, the woman with whom he had an affair more than 2 decades ago, was indeed the mother of that young woman he now watched from afar. Full of determination he recognized, but that deeply unsettled him. But it was another piece of information in the report that hit him even harder. Carmen was dead. Joseph felt a lump tighten in his throat, and for the first time in many years, he couldn't maintain his composure. In a reflex, he pushed the report aside as if the papers in front of him could disappear and take all the emerging pain with them. Carmen? Dead? He stood up abruptly from the leather chair in his private office, walking to the window to seek some relief in the skyscraper horizon that had always brought him a sense of control. But this time, the horizon was suffocating. Carmen had died when Lauren was only 4. Alone. Abandoned. And he, Lauren's father, had done nothing. He hadn't been there. The memories of Carmen, which he had tried to bury, began to resurface like ghosts. He remembered her smile, the stolen moments they shared in secret. At the time, Joseph was a married man, and despite feeling something special for Carmen, he never seriously considered leaving his life and family for her. The relationship had started innocently, with Carmen working in his house as a maid, but it quickly became something more. Joseph had promised to take care of her, but when Carmen suddenly disappeared, he hadn't made the necessary effort to find her. He buried the past, focused on growing his business, and life went on, or so he thought. Now, upon discovering that Carmen had died and that Lauren, his daughter, had been left in the care of poor relatives, guilt consumed him. He felt as though an invisible weight was about to crush him. All those wrong decisions from years ago were now unfolding with consequences he had never imagined. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the life of a young woman he had a duty to protect, but never knew existed. And Carmen, she had probably died alone, without ever telling him about the daughter she carried. Joseph was drowning in remorse. For days, he barely slept, replaying everything he had learned in his mind. He knew he had to confront Lauren with the truth. But how? How could he explain that he was the absent father she never knew? How could he ask for forgiveness for something as monstrous as ignoring the existence of his own daughter? Amid the emotional storm, Joseph also felt a growing urge to protect Lauren. Knowing about the precarious conditions in which she and her uncles lived filled him with deep anguish. He began to imagine the difficulties she must have faced, the missed opportunities, the dreams she had to abandon due to lack of resources. And all of this, in part, was his fault. After days of inner torment, Joseph finally decided he couldn't delay the inevitable any longer. The truth had to come out, and he had to face the consequences. That afternoon, he returned to the Crown, now determined to talk to Lauren and tell her everything. Lauren was having a particularly hard day. Claire, her boss, had spent the entire shift making nasty, prejudiced remarks. "You know, Lauren, you really should be more grateful for working here. With your background, coming from where you do, I doubt you could get anything better. Unless you plan to keep working where your people usually end up. If you catch my drift?" Claire said, with that condescending smile Lauren had come to know all too well. The young woman bit her tongue. It wasn't the first time Claire had humiliated her, and it probably wouldn't be the last. There were moments when Lauren felt suffocated by the veiled prejudice she faced there, but she knew she couldn't afford to lose that job. It was all she had. Before Lauren could respond, a firm voice echoed through the cafe. "What's going on here?" Joseph's presence, strong and imposing, was immediately felt as he approached. Claire instantly fell silent, her eyes widening when she saw who it was. "Oh, Mr. Carrington?" Claire stammered, quickly trying to regain her composure, but her shaky stance betrayed the discomfort she felt. Joseph looked at her with barely contained contempt. "I can't believe what I just heard," he said, his voice low but brimming with anger. "Is this how you treat your staff?" Claire opened her mouth to defend herself, but Joseph cut her off without hesitation. "Do you think it's appropriate to humiliate someone because of their background? I'm stunned to have witnessed such a despicable attitude from a manager." Claire stammered, trying to find an excuse. I was just... You were just being prejudiced and cruel. And if I can guarantee anything, it's that this ends here. The owner of this place is a personal friend of mine, and I'll make sure he knows exactly who you are and what you do to your employees. Believe me, you won't have a job here anymore." Claire turned pale, her body trembling in shock. She knew Joseph Carrington had enough influence to fulfill that promise without breaking a sweat. The look of superiority vanished from her face, replaced by fear. Trying to maintain what little dignity she had left, Claire quietly walked away, leaving Joseph and Lauren alone. Lauren, still in shock over what had just happened, could barely look at Joseph. She felt a mix of relief for being defended and discomfort, not understanding why he had done this for her. "You didn't have to do that," Lauren said, her voice trembling. "I'm used to it by now." Joseph felt his heart ache at those words. The ease with which Lauren accepted humiliation was something he couldn't bear. "Yes, I did. And you should never get used to that kind of treatment," he said, his voice softer now, but still filled with emotion. Confused, Lauren looked at him, sensing that her life was about to change drastically. Joseph approached the table where Lauren was setting utensils and called her in a tone that made her shiver. "Lauren, can we talk?" he asked, his voice gentler than she expected. Reluctant, and not understanding what this man wanted, she agreed and followed him to a reserved table, away from the other customers. She sat across from him, nervous. Joseph seemed uneasy, his hands clasped on the table, his eyes avoiding hers. After a few seconds of silence, he finally took a deep breath and began to speak. "Lauren, what I'm about to tell you may be hard to believe, and frankly, I don't even know where to start. But I think the first step is to tell you that I know you, or rather, I knew your mother." Lauren's heart started racing. "My mother?" she repeated, her voice barely audible. It was rare to hear anyone talk about her mother. Almost no one mentioned her. But this man, a complete stranger, was now saying he knew her? "Yes, your mother, Carmen. She worked for me many years ago. We had a relationship. It was a complicated time. I was a different man, focused on business, and I made many mistakes. One of them was not looking for her when she disappeared. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know you existed, Lauren," Joseph confessed, his voice faltering for the first time. Lauren blinked, confused. She heard the words, but they didn't seem to fit. How could he have known her mother? How could he not have known she existed? She tried to process everything, but it was too much for her mind. "What are you trying to say?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Joseph leaned forward in his chair, his eyes finally meeting hers. "Lauren, I'm your father." The words hung in the air between them like a blow. Lauren recoiled, nearly knocking over her chair, her whole body shaking. "This can't be true," she said, more to herself than to him. The world around her seemed to spin, and the memories she had of her childhood, the few she had of her mother, began to blur with the reality now being presented to her. Joseph watched her in silence, waiting for her to process the shock. "I know this is hard, and I know I can't change what happened, but I want to. I need to make things right. I owe you that, and I owe your mother." The weeks following Joseph's revelation were intense and confusing for Lauren. The truth felt like a distant dream, something surreal that she couldn't fully absorb. The man who had defended and protected her the day Claire humiliated her was, in reality, her biological father. The father she never knew. The pain of abandonment, mixed with the hope of a new beginning, created a whirlwind of emotions inside her. At first, Lauren kept her distance. Accepting that Joseph was her father was difficult, especially because it brought up all the unanswered questions she carried about her mother. How could he not have known about her existence? How could he have gone on with his life while Carmen, her mother, died alone? And she, Lauren, was left to be raised in such difficult conditions by her uncles? But Joseph didn't give up. He knew time was his only ally, and that he needed to earn Lauren's trust with patience. He began meeting her frequently, at first just to talk and answer her questions about Carmen. He told Lauren about the relationship he had with her mother, confessing the mistakes he made by not looking for her when she disappeared. Joseph admitted that, at the time, he had been so consumed by business and his marriage that he simply left the past behind, something he deeply regretted. Gradually, Lauren began to see Joseph in a different light. He wasn't just the powerful and distant man she had imagined, but someone who carried deep regrets, someone who was willing to make amends where he could. The way he worked to be present in her life, without imposing himself, made her start to let down her guard. Lauren realized that despite all the lost time, there was a genuine desire for connection between them. Her relationship with her uncles also changed. When Lauren told Samuel and Mary about Joseph, they were initially shocked. They had never suspected that Lauren's biological father was such an influential man. But Joseph, far from being a distant stranger, approached them with respect and gratitude. He knew that Lauren's uncles had made immense sacrifices to raise her, and he committed to helping them in the same way he had decided to help Lauren. Joseph bought a new house for Samuel and Mary in a safe and comfortable neighborhood, and provided them with good jobs at his company, where they could finally live without the financial worries that had plagued them for so many years. He also ensured that Lauren, if she wanted, had access to educational and professional opportunities that were previously unimaginable. Little by little, the bonds between Lauren, her uncles, and Joseph began to strengthen. She started to see Joseph not just as the absent father from her past, but as someone who could be part of her future. As months passed, Lauren began to find her place in this new reality. The pain of the past hadn't completely disappeared, but the weight on her shoulders was now lighter. The truth, as hard as it was, brought with it an unexpected freedom. Lauren was no longer alone. She had a father, imperfect as he was, and she had her uncles, who now lived with more comfort and dignity. Joseph was also no longer the same man. The revelation of his paternity brought about a profound transformation in his life. He significantly reduced his working hours, stepping back from business to spend more time with Lauren and her family. He wanted to be present, wanted to learn how to be the father he never was. His relationship with his wife, Elizabeth, also underwent a reevaluation. After the initial shock of discovering Lauren, Elizabeth, who had always known about Joseph's affair with Carmen, decided to welcome Lauren with generosity, recognizing that she was not to blame for the past. Joseph's other children also received Lauren with some hesitation at first, but over time they began to accept her as part of the family. Together, they planned a big family trip, something Lauren had never imagined doing. The Carrington mansion, once a place of secrets and tension, now became a home where the truth, though painful, finally allowed everyone to reconcile and move forward. Sometime later, on a spring morning in New York, the city slowly awakened under the golden glow of the rising sun. On the porch of her new home, the Carrington mansion, Lauren Garcia gazed at the horizon, feeling the gentle breeze on her face as she held the necklace between her fingers. The heart-shaped pendant, which once seemed to carry the weight of a mysterious and painful past, now shimmered in a different way. Inside the small metal heart was still the old photo of her mother, Carmen, a constant reminder of the love that never faded. But, like her life, the necklace had also transformed. In recent months, Lauren's life had undergone a revolution she could never have predicted. Reuniting with her father, Joseph Carrington, and the truth about her past, not only confronted her with long-hidden secrets, but also gave her a new perspective on who she was and what she could achieve. The scars of her past still existed, but now they were part of a larger story, a story of reconciliation and renewal. Joseph, driven by the desire to make amends for his past mistakes and do something meaningful in Carmen's name, made a decision that deeply moved Lauren. He decided to create a foundation in Carmen Garcia's honor, dedicated to helping young single mothers and their families. It was a symbolic gesture, but also a practical one, a way to give women facing similar struggles to Carmen's a chance at a better life. The Carmen Garcia Foundation was designed to provide support in essential areas: education, housing, financial assistance, and psychological counseling. For Joseph, the foundation was a way to close a chapter, to finally do something concrete in Carmen's memory, and to ensure that her story would serve to protect and give hope to other women. But above all, he knew the heart of the foundation had to be Lauren. Initially hesitant, Lauren soon realized that the foundation gave her a unique opportunity to turn her own pain into something that could benefit others. As the foundation's executive director, Lauren embraced her new role with a determination that surprised even herself. What had once been just a path to personal healing now became a life mission: to help vulnerable women find the support and strength they were often denied. She dedicated herself to the foundation wholeheartedly, using her personal experience to shape the programs they developed. She knew what it was like to grow up with few resources, to see her uncles sacrifice everything to give her the bare minimum, and to face the invisible and often very visible barriers imposed by prejudice and financial limitations. Lauren deeply understood what it meant to have few opportunities and many challenges, and this made every decision at the foundation reflect that understanding. The foundation wasn't just about charity. It was about empowerment. Under Lauren's leadership, young mothers didn't just receive material help, but also emotional and psychological support, so they could rebuild and find their own paths to success. Professional training courses, scholarships, and mentorship programs were implemented, all with the goal of creating a brighter future for the mothers and their children. Joseph, although distanced from daily operations, continued to support the initiative with enthusiasm, always proud of the impact the foundation was having. He saw in Lauren not just the daughter he had neglected for so long, but a natural leader, someone capable of making a real difference in the world. And with every small victory at the foundation, he felt he was finally honoring Carmen's memory in a way he should have long ago. That spring morning, Lauren felt the weight of this new chapter in her life. From her porch, she looked out at the city with a mix of serenity and determination. The cool morning breeze was a reminder that, like the wind, life was unpredictable but always moving. And now, more than ever, she was ready to move forward. As she held the necklace, her fingers gently traced the pendant. The old photo of her mother was still there, a constant reminder of where her story began. But unlike before, Lauren no longer felt that suffocating sadness when she looked at the image. There was something different now. The necklace no longer symbolized just the losses she had faced, but also the unexpected encounters life had given her. The pendant, once merely a reminder of Carmen, now also represented the foundation that brought hope to so many other women. It was a link between past and present, between pain and healing, between what was lost and what was found. In some way, Carmen continued to live through the women who received support and guidance, and Lauren knew this was the greatest gift she could have given to her mother's memory. As she breathed deeply, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs, Lauren smiled. It wasn't a smile of resignation or relief, but one of hope. She knew her journey was far from over, but for the first time in her life, she felt in control of her destiny. The foundation was growing, impacting lives, and she had a crucial role in that process. Joseph had found a way to reconcile with the past, and her relationship with him was growing stronger every day. Her uncles, now living with more comfort and dignity, looked at Lauren's success with pride, knowing that every sacrifice they made to raise her had been worth it. As the sun rose higher on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Lauren closed her eyes for a moment, holding the necklace to her chest. It was the start of another day, but also the beginning of something much greater. What had once been a story of secrets and uncertainties had turned into a journey of renewal and purpose. Now, Lauren knew that her story, like the necklace she had worn since childhood, was complete. It wasn't perfect nor without pain, but it was hers. A story of losses and discoveries, of suffering and resilience, of secrets revealed and new beginnings. And, just like that necklace that had been with her since childhood, she too had finally found her place. Thank you for sharing this moment with us. Each story I tell is made with dedication and care, with the hope of touching the hearts of those who listen. If this story stirred something within you, consider subscribing so we can continue this journey of storytelling together. Your support is essential for us to keep sharing these unique experiences. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.